Michael Smith is a Springfield native. He's been heading the Federal Social Innovation Fund. He's just been appointed a special assistant to President Obama, and he is now director of the president's My Brother's Keeper initiative, aimed very loosely at improving the lives of young men of color in this country. He is home in Springfield to address the Grad Nation Community Summit at Springfield College. We are pleased he has squeezed in some time right after flying into Bradley to come and spend some time with us. Thank you, sir. Welcome home.
Thank you. Good to be home.
What do you see, bearing in mind we have an 8-minute segment here, and this could probably go for hours, what do you see as your job, the mission really, as director of My Brother's Keeper?
You know, if you look at the statistics for boys and young men of color, when it comes to things like prison, when it comes to detention, when it comes to recidivism rates, when it comes to third-grade reading levels, early childhood, boys and young men of color are far behind their peers, whether they're white or whether they're Asian. And so when you ask yourself about global competitiveness for the United States of America, and you see so many young people, boys and young men of color especially, that are sitting on the sidelines, that are not participating at their full speed, you realize that there's something that we have to do as a nation if we're going to continue to be strong and competitive. So we are trying to close these persistent opportunity gaps, give them a hand up so that they can reach their dreams, but also remove some barriers to success.
There are a lot of folks in Washington with the title Special Assistant to the President. All due respect, not trying to take anything away from you. I suspect that your special assistantship is watched maybe a little more closely by the President, because this is really something that, correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but this grew out of some remarks he made after the Trayvon Martin shooting in Florida, when he said, you know, if I had a son, he'd look like this young man. And from there, people said, what do we do? Where do we go? And the special initiative aimed at young men of color began. Keep them in school, keep them out of prison.
Absolutely. This is something that's very personal to the president. I think it was last July or last June when the president surprised the briefing room and came to the briefing room to really express what he was feeling, what he thought the nation was feeling after the Trayvon Martin verdict, and saying, if you look at the statistics, you realize there's something that we can do. It's probably not going to be a big government program, but if we all lock arms together, businesses, foundations, nonprofits, schools, then maybe we can do something to close these opportunity gaps for boys and young men of color, but also to make sure that all of our young people can reach their full potential. And he's committed not only to working on this with the federal task force, with our partnerships, but this is something that he and the First Lady will work on when they leave the White House as well.
Staying in school sounds so simple. I mean, it's almost become a cliche. You hear people say it to young people as they're greeting them, or stay in school. But it's so much easier said than done, especially for some of the situations these young men find themselves in. Home difficulties, poverty. Getting up and getting to school on time is more difficult than a lot of us might even imagine. It's a real commitment to try and change this, isn't it?
You know, it's tough for many of our young people out there, and that's why you see programs like the Harlem Children's Zone working so effectively, because you realize it's not just about reading or writing. It's about helping the parents. It's about helping the grandparents. It's about after-school programs. It's about, did someone get a meal before they came to school? And so if we're going to have real successes, we're going to have to look at the whole child, the whole family, and making sure that we're providing these wraparound support so that they can reach their dreams and achieve success.
I know you've said a big part of what you need to do is to get more corporate support for programs that provide job training, educational opportunities for African American and Latino youth.
Absolutely. I mean, this is not just about after-school programs. This is about apprenticeships, programs like Year Up, programs like Youth Build that are taking some of the kids that have already maybe been through prison or had some interaction with the justice system, teaching them a skill and getting them into jobs so that they can feel good about themselves, but also make a living for themselves and their families. And so corporations have to look far beyond their grant writing checkbooks, but also how can you hire these kids? How can you provide internships? How can you make sure that you're preparing the workforce of tomorrow? Even if you look at the STEM education field, there are thousands of jobs that go unfilled here in the United States because we have young people that are getting out of our skill system, or out of our school systems, that don't have the skills to get those jobs. So there is a huge opportunity for corporate America and a reason for them to focus on this population.
Shift gears a little bit on you. I mean, doing this commitment, this appointment, making this work is very personal for you. You grew up tough here in Springfield. You want to help others get the hand up and out and away from trouble that you got from some folks?
Absolutely. This job is not only an honor because I get to work for the President of the United States, it's a deep privilege because I was one of the young people. I am one of the young people that we are trying to help. You know, I grew up on Hill McKnight. My parents were 16 years old when I was born. Thankfully, you know, my mom had a lot of common sense. She dropped me off at a Boys and Girls Club, the Family Center, on Acorn Street in Springfield, and that was transformative for me. But I saw, you know, way too much violence. I saw way too much crime. I saw way too many people fall off the wayside. I actually had a brother that was killed here in Springfield as a result of violence in broad daylight. And so I know very real the challenges that these young people face, and to have an opportunity to try to do something about it is the honor of a lifetime.
You've also said there need to be benchmarks, if I'm using the right word, measurements that show things are working, turning things around for men of color. I think the phrase you used was, we're investing in evidence, not isolated stories of the few who may succeed.
Yeah, you know, the president talks all the time about investing in what works. If we're honest with ourselves, good is not good enough. There are a lot of great organizations out there that are doing good work, but we've got to start measuring. We have to start putting the data out there and asking ourselves the question, what are we trying to accomplish here, and did we get it done? So everything that we do with My Brother's Keeper, the partners that we're working with, will only go into investment in evidence-based programs that actually have proof of results. Not how many kids went through the program, but how many actually succeeded, how many went to college, stayed in college, how many got jobs, kept jobs. And we have to flip the way that we think about investing in community solutions if we're going to be successful.
Is that going to be the metric for you, for the administration, a year or two down the road? I mean, literally you can look and say, we've seen X number of young men go on to education. We've seen X number of young men not. We're seeing a drop in the number of African American and Latino youth going into the prison systems. You can literally measure this, can't you?
You can literally measure it. We are looking at young men between the ages of 0 and 24, all the way from early childhood success up to making sure that they have an opportunity to get into college and career, so going from cradle to college and career. And so we're going to measure those things to actually try to decrease these gaps, but we're also going to measure how we're embedding this in communities. So the president kicked off the My Brother's Keeper Community Challenge in September at the Congressional Black Caucus Conference. And so right now we have almost 200 cities where mayors or tribal leaders or county executives have signed up to say they will be a My Brother's Keeper community, and they will create plans, they will hold local action summits, and they will begin to execute evidence-based plans to turn the situation around within 180 days.
A little less than a minute. Let's bring it full circle. Let's remind people, and you've touched on this here today with us, but the dimension of this problem. I mean, there's talk that we're losing a whole generation in some ways of young men of color, either losing them to the violence on the streets or they're going in prison because of their involvement in committing some of that violence on the streets. You cannot overstate the importance of this initiative.
You can't. I mean, half of the nation's murder victims are boys and young men of color. Half of the nation's murder victims. And even if you take it beyond boys and young men of color, there's this group of people called opportunity youth, which are young people between 16 to 24 that are not in school or working. It's more than 6 million young people that are just sitting on the sidelines. And so you cannot have a country that is healthy, that is strong, unless we're fielding a full team, as the president likes to say. And so we've just got to do something about it. There is no question. It's time for us to roll up our sleeves and tackle this problem.
Well, Michael Smith, good to have you home in Springfield, if only for a day or so, and congratulations on your presidential appointment. We wish you well with My Brother's Keeper.
Thanks so much. Good to be here.